Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 5th, 2022 edition of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I'm your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media and pretty much everywhere else. All right. And you could, check us out through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also through the YouTube pages. That's for those that are, listening, uh, as this is going to be, part of that recorded podcast that is available on iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify, or whatever you use for your favorite podcast. But currently, this is going through live on YouTube. So for those that are, like tuning in live through YouTube, we thank you for listening in live. We got, a few things that we're going to, try to jump into here in this particular episode, but in detail, we have the main topic as far as like what has been going on, overseas, when it comes to, a certain person in a certain organization or a couple of organizations that may have or have had ties with this person. So we're going to get into that in the live chat. Shout out to Alan to Saint joining in the live chat. We're gonna be, talking about a few things here. Hopefully, you could, also jump in or contribute in the live chat for the conversation when it comes to the main topic. You know, um, not necessarily. We haven't really gotten to. We haven't gotten to any parts mentioning that man's name from Kazakhstan. So I don't think we're gonna be getting into that here quite yet. But before we get into the main topic, I know that we had action over the weekend. A couple of notable fights that were happening over the weekend. You know that were across the pond, as they say. We talk about a couple main events. One was for a world title in the cruiserweight division, and the other was a fight that was in the heavyweight division. And I was going to touch on first the fight that was in the heavyweight division with the Juggernaut Joe Joyce against Christian Hammer. Of course, Juggernaut there, came into that bout undefeated. Uh, he kind of like was I would say in a sense twiddling his thumbs or whatnot, at 13-0, waiting for his apparent, potential shot at a world championship. Uh, of course, he had his notable win over Daniel Dubois in 2020, and then the following year in 2021, over in Wembley Arena, he had his stoppage win over Carlos Takam, and you're gonna see about maybe him potentially being in position to fight for the WBO world title. But remember, as the fight that happened between Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk for the WBO, WBA, and IBF titles, that Alexander Usyk was able to defeat Anthony Joshua by decision to win those titles. Kind of like delayed things a little bit when it came to things as far as like other challengers go. But Usyk was at the time the WBO mandatory, so they needed to look for a next mandatory. And eventually they, were trying to work out to have Joe Joyce being that, but they wanted him to have one fight there within the WBO rankings against Joseph Parker. And that fight didn't necessarily, come to fruition as of yet. So in the interim, Joe Joyce said, "Hey, I want to, have a fight, keep myself going, get things done." And so they lined up a fight between him and Christian Hammer. Christian Hammer, the veteran, there came in with a record of 27 wins and 9 losses. Of course, 17 of those wins that he had were by way of knockout. He's been in there against likes of Frank Sanchez Foray, Huey Fury, Tony Yoka, Luis Ortiz, Alexander Povetkin, David Price, Tyson Luke Fury, among others, like Danny Williams, for those that are familiar with names back in the day. there in the heavyweight division. But yes, Christian Hammer has been a long-standing veteran there in the heavyweight division. But here against Joe Joyce, man, it almost looked like he was pretty much a punching bag for Joe Joyce. Uh, he was game for a little bit, but even with Joe Joyce, he's, as they say, fundamentally sound. But man, I'm gonna say it, man. He's fundamentally slow. I kind of said that he reminds me of a young George Foreman. Um, very powerful, but also very slow. And in this particular fight, like I've seen a lot of those punches that were coming from Joe Joyce were like really slow going towards Christian Hammer, and it still landed. But it just shows that even with him, having an undefeated record, having a high KO ratio, that there's still things that Joe Joyce has to work on in his quote unquote young professional career. Yes, he's had an extended career, like when it comes to the amateurs, and he's been a semi-pro before stepping in the ring as a professional. But here, I mean, this is Joe Joyce here at 14 fights, and he's 36 years old. You know, um, it looks like he has all the elements to kind of like contend for a world title. Has the quote unquote look, so to speak. 6 foot 6 with an 80-inch reach. Pretty much ranging around 265 pounds. Doesn't really get that far below 255, but he's been as high as like 270. And like I said, it looks like he does things by the book, but by doing things by the book, it almost seems like he's too rudimentary, too textbook, going through things by the book. um you know in a sense, he might think about what he's doing for a while before actually getting to what he's doing, but when he does it and it lands, it hurts. you know. And that's the thing about it with all the opponents that he's faced up to this particular point, is that he's been able to break down each one of those fighters, to where it eventually becomes, something where he gets a knockdown or he ends up stopping his opponents. Daniel Dubois had taken a knee after being jabbed up for that whole fight, there against Joe Joyce. Carlos Takam, ended up getting beat down. Brian Jennings was able to get through 12 rounds, but I think that was kind of like something where Brian Jennings kind of like tried to survive in that instance. Likes of Michael Wallace, Ustinov, Vermont Severn, Joe Hanks, Iago Kalazde, uh, you know, all of those guys going up against Joe Joyce, they eventually broke down. And that's the same thing that happened here with Christian Hammer. Christian Hammer, like I said, had been stopped a few times over the course of his professional career. Um, but he did have those decision losses to Tony Yoka and to Frank Sanchez, but did get stopped by Huey Fury last year. But he's been pretty active, though. I could say that from 2021 into this year. This was like the third fight this year for Christian Hammer. But for Joe Joyce, him just getting his bout, getting some work in, getting a fourth round stoppage victory, keeping his standing as an undefeated fighter, waiting to see what happens, with the fight against Joseph Parker. I mean, like I said, you do have the instance where that would kind of like be for the top spot uh, for the WBO belt. I'm not sure if the WBO itself has the super championship status, on there, as they did when Anthony Joshua held the belts, because he was, unified champion, had defended it a good number of times and whatnot. So I'm not sure if Alexander Usyk still or is the one that does have that super champion status. But with Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker being number one and number two in the WBO rankings, that fight would kind of like set up the mandatory challenger there for the WBO, and I guess the mandatory defense thing kind of like resets itself or whatnot. So I mean, maybe when we find out what happens with the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua, what happens with the winner? Do they, end up having another mandatory defense, or does any type of move happen where they could potentially fight for the undisputed championship? I may, I'll be talking about, one this particular guy in another segment, but of course, the WBC champion is Mr. Tyson Luke Fury, and the way things have gone with Mr. Luke, he really wanted to see if he could try to get a fight in there with Anthony Joshua, not just for the undisputed heavyweight championships, but he wanted to say that I'm the number one guy, from the UK or Britain or whatever it is, as number one, and that he could pretty much say that he is undisputed champion. Yes, he has held every single world title. He had to win over Vladimir Klitschko to win the other three belts. IBF, WBA, and WBO, and then 9 days later he was stripped of the IBF. And then of course he had this whole little ordeal. They got him suspended. Comes back and eventually defeats Deontay Wilder for the WBC belt. So I mean, now it's more of like, okay, I want to see if I beat all the top guys or all the guys that they said are up there among the top in the heavyweight division in my area. So if Tyson Fury, kind of like does that, he'll leave his stamp as far as like one of the highest rated heavyweights in the modern era. But he really kind of like wants that quote unquote money fight with Anthony Joshua, but there's still some things that have to be sorted out, not just with the fight, with the rematch between Joshua and Usyk, but with Tyson Fury himself. So back to the thing there with Joe Joyce, like I was saying, he handled business, took out Christian Hammer, didn't really break that much of a sweat. I know Christian Hammer had a couple of times where he complained about, hitting behind the head or hitting behind the ear, whatever it is. But even with Christian Hammer being knocked down a couple of times and him trying to make an effort of it, he was just not accurate enough and didn't really have the power to really get Joe Joyce's respect, And to me, I think that's going to be the interesting part with Joe Joyce is who could be out there in the heavyweight division that could, potentially give him problems. I know that there's guys out there. Of course, I've named the champions. Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. You have former champion Anthony Joshua. You have another former champion in Deontay Wilder. You have someone like a Dylan White. We have to see what happens with Dylan White. Him after him, losing by knockout to Tyson Fury. Like, what's going to happen next for Dylan White? I'm not saying that it could potentially be White versus Joe Joyce, but hey, crazier things have happened in the sport of boxing. I mean, Dylan White is like off and on like a free agent of sorts. And that's kind of like how, they were able to, I guess, get this thing with Tyson Fury, even though that went to purse bid, record purse bid of sorts. So Tyson Fury got paid, Dylan White got paid. But with Dylan White, him suffering another knockout loss, with an uppercut like he did against Alexander Povetkin, you got to see where, Dylan White's status is in the heavyweight division. So we got to sort that out. But that that's the thing there with Joe Joyce getting the win over Christian Hammer. Moving on, you also had another event that did take place overseas, and this one had the IBF Cruiserweight Championship on the line, and also it had the Ring Magazine Cruiserweight title on the line. Yep, that's right. Yep. And it was Myra's Brightest putting those belts on the line against High Obatiah. High Obatiah was coming in there with a record of 21-0. Looked like, it was like, oh, okay, he's 21-0 and whatnot, and let's see what he's about, but a majority of his fights, a huge majority of his fights, were in his native country of Australia, which where he's from. And this particular fight here against Maris Brightus was in Australia, in Broadbeach, in Australia. But Maris Brightus was coming in there, of course, the IBF and Ring Magazine champion. We had of course, a whole thing that happened with him and Christoph Gloraki a few years ago, which had it to where he got stripped of that belt. And then he turned around and had a fight against Junior Dorticos for the IBF title, won it, then was able to defend it last year with third round TKO victory, and then had his fight against Hio Patai. And this one here, I was like, hey, I didn't necessarily think that Opatai could kind of got at Maris Brightus. But I was looking and I'm like, and I was part of a conversation, kind of like talking about the fight before it happened, and I was like, wait a minute. I mean, you got this guy in Hio Patai. He's a young guy, they're 27 years old, fairly young in a sense. Like I said, 22, 21 victories up until that point. Had like a fairly good amateur background, pretty good record in the amateurs. So, he was pretty solid, as far as like skills are concerned. But you had, of course, Maris Brightus, the veteran, the, multi-time world champion at cruiserweight, had his bouts where, he, did, win over like Mike Perez and Marco Huck and other fighters before, suffering the loss of Alexander Usyk in the World Boxing Super Series, which was a very close fight, to many. Some people thought that maybe Brightus could have pulled that one off, but he wasn't able to. He fell, just a little bit short. But I thought that Brightus would have been really favored in this bout, but Hio Patai was first to the punch, very active with his attack, very consistent with his jab. And he was coming in there as a southpaw. He came in there with the right jab and was, very consistent with the jab, kept his distance. He was the, like the taller man there, so to speak, and had the reach and just, measured his distance out and was able to, keep Maris Brightus away early in that particular fight, for the majority of those, first few rounds. And, I was looking at the fight, and, my thing was there, on ESPN Plus, that even though Hio Patai was having a very good start, that he was still open to some shots that could have came from Maris Brightus. And one of the punches that I was looking for from Maris Brightus was the uppercut early in that fight. Right after the third round, I pretty much mentioned like, hey, I see that Opatai is doing good, but he seems like he is open for an uppercut. But before Brightus could kind of like get into that, near the end of the fourth round, Hio Patai landed a big left uppercut on Maris Brightus that really shifted the momentum in Opatai's favor big time. And you've seen that Maris Brightus was visibly hurt, was bleeding, pretty much like from the nose and whatnot, and that he also had some, bruising and bleeding up above his eye. And it was just a matter of, okay, is Hayo Patai gonna still be able to keep his composure over the course of these rounds and see if he could either, you know, end up stopping Marriage Brightest or get through 12 rounds and be able to get the decision. Uh, but he was able to keep his pace going for a little bit for the fifth through the seventh or eighth rounds, and then around the ninth and 10th round, you kind of like seeing a shift, kind of coming back to Marriage Brightest, where he started to land those uppercuts on Hayo Bataya, and he was able to set up lead right hands on Hayo Bataya, and a couple of them were able to shake Obatiah for a little bit, and I think it was like around the 10th round or so, Obatiah was visibly hurt, visibly shaken. That it Brightest tried to get on top of him, try to take advantage of that opportunity and see if he could either knock down Obatiah or try to get a stoppage. But Obatiah was able to get through the 10th round, uh, got his composure back in around the 11th round, and then in the 12th round, he kind of like closed the show, so to speak, as far as like being more active, uh, utilizing his offense, utilizing his jab, and saying that, hey, I know that Marist Brightest is a defending champion, so I got to make sure that, this last particular round, I got to make sure that I'm winning this round to say, hey, I did my work in the first half, pretty much the first half of the fight. I know that Marist Brightest probably had a couple of rounds where he may have gotten me back, but I want to close the show and say that, hey, I'm still here. I've visibly done better over the course of this fight, but I want to make a stamp on it. And that's what he did there in the 12th round. And once it was all said and done, 12 rounds gone, you had a unanimous decision victory for the new champion, Hayo Pataya. Two scores, 116, 112, one score, 115, 113. And 116, 112 was pretty much how I scored the bout for Obatiah. I thought that he, like I said, he had those first, four or five rounds where he had the upper hand. And there were only like a couple of rounds where I clearly saw Marist Brightest have the advantage in those rounds. And so, with that being said, you have a new champion, IBF Cruiserweight champion. You have a new Ring Magazine champion at Cruiserweight in Hayo Bataya. And that, kind of like opens things up as far as like that Cruiserweight division a little bit. I mean, you have, the other title holders in Lawrence Sicoli, who's another undefeated guy there. You have uh, Arsen Gulamarian, who is the WBA super champ. And of course, Lunga Makabu, the WBC cruiserweight champ, who was mentioned as one of those potential opponents for Saul Canelo Alvarez or Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan. But now you have someone that is a new champion in the cruiserweight division. That, like I said, I mean, it could open up other things as far as like potential bouts are out there. Um, he was before this fight I think it's like the fourth ranked contender there in the IBF rankings. It doesn't look like they had a mandatory challenger at the time. I think they may be setting up something where they could fight, or two fighters could fight for that top spot in the IBF rankings. But as of right now, Hayo Patai is the IBF champion, Ring Magazine champion, and so that could, I guess, set things up for him to maybe have a unification bout in his next bout if they feel like he's ready for it. So I don't see how that's, that couldn't be the case. But that's, what I had there for, the action that's the previous weekend. Now I wanted to get into the main topic. And I mean, this is something that it seems um, like people within boxing media may or may not have touched on a lot, um, because maybe they kind of like, you know, got in too deep, so to speak. But here at the Boxing Source, we don't really like have those type of ties, affiliations, or anything like that. We're kind of like an independent organization. We aren't funded by anybody. We're not ESPN. We're not Fox Sports. We're not BT Sport. We're not any of those networks. We're not like part of those other big media companies that are out there. We're not those like boxing channels or whatever it is for YouTube, boxing YouTube channels or whatnot that kind of like have a lot of interviews or dealings with some fighters, promoters, and things like that. We try to reach out to anyone and everyone independently, you know, regardless of the promotional company or promotional affiliation or anything like that. We reach out to them independently. So we try not to have any type of affiliation with any promotional company or something like that, even though there is one particular contributor to the Boxing Source radio show that feels like I am the biggest Deontay Wilder hater on the planet and that I am the biggest Anthony Joshua supporter on the planet. That isn't true. Okay. We try to call things down the line as much as possible, except when it comes to, as Brother Alan Toussaint stated in the live chat, when it comes to Gennadievich Golovkin. Okay, that those that follow the podcast, y'all know how I feel about Gennadievich Golovkin. But now, when it comes to this whole thing in reference to MTK Global and Daniel Kinahan. The new like more news had been circulating around as far as like, the RICO, pretty much the RICO case, dealing with Daniel Kinahan and RICO, that's years and years and years and years and years of investigations before they bring down this thing. Um so the thing about it is like with Kinehan, he had, of course, his dealings with what's been going on in the crime world. So we want to get into that a little bit, but first I want to get in one contributor, the longtime contributor to the Boxing Source radio show and the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club. That's right, Mr. MVO himself, Matthew Brown. What in the world is this? Is this one of those Maury Povich? Yo, what is this, like my 600-pound life? What is going on here?
It says Felipe enjoys watching his woman eat and gain weight.
Oh my god.
Very interesting.
When I said Maury Povich, maybe it's like Dr. Phil or something. I don't
Nah,
know.
Tyra Banks.
Oh, Tyra Banks. Oh
The whole
man.
Tyra show.
Oh man, I wouldn't have named her show after like 10 names. I would have went through like Ricky Lake, Sally Jesse Raphael.
Oh shit! Did you see the breaking news regarding Jake Paul?
Uh-oh. Hold up. Well, I mean, they had the whole thing with Fury, so let me see. Is it on his Twitter?
Fury has been replaced.
Oh, well, he did say that he had a couple of days before he's gonna make a move.
Yeah, but
So
but he's been replaced with a tougher opponent.
oh, a tougher opponent. Oh wow.
I don't know about this one.
Wait. He posted on his joint.
No, Chris Mannix posted it. It says
Oh,
breaking
Manix.
news: Jake Paul is finalizing a deal to face Hasim Rahman Jr. on August.
What?
Yeah,
Hasim Rahman Jr. on August 6th. Sources familiar with the negotiations told Sports Illustrated. Oh wow. Wow. Wow, man. Yeah, that's some news, bro.
He can
That's some
crack. So,
news,
wow, this is interesting.
man. Hey, I mean, for one, I hope number one, I hope Rodman Jr. and them getting paid.
Oh, you know he's getting paid.
Oh yeah, he getting paid.
Now my question is he getting paid to take a dive?
Right. Hey, let's see. Hakeem Rahman's Instagram pages, and let's follow his posts to see if he gonna be posting as often as he does.
Yeah, this is crazy to me. Because if you think about it, Asim Rahman's a big kid. He's like what?
Mm-hmm.
3?
Mm-hmm.
And he's from your area too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! This is. I'm shocked.
Right. Like I wouldn't have thought like like he would have been anywhere near like his thing. He did lose to Morrison though.
Yeah, but Morrison's a real fighter.
Yeah.
It's not like he lost to someone who doesn't box.
Right.
This is okay, Jake Paul.
I mean, Rodman Jr. had like bouts against guys that were 3-10, 4-11, 4-15, you know what I'm saying? Before he fought James Morrison, you
Yeah.
know.
So maybe
So
that was too big of a step up for him too quick.
yeah,
But
that particular point.
Jake Paul ain't no fucking step up.
Nope. Mm-mm. Nope. But that's wild, man. Like, news came, less than a half hour ago.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
I was like, wow. But I mean, it's like he said Jake was you know backing away from Tommy Fury, who was denied entry into the U.S. because of what was basically talking about this whole thing with Kinehan and MTK and Rico and money laundering and washing money and all that type of stuff. I'm like, hey, all these people that were one way or another affiliated with MTK Global, they gonna get hit, you know.
Now I
And
wonder if this fight is going to be a heavyweight.
good
The
question.
lowest that Rockvard Jr. has ever weighed in a fight was 211.
Shoot, so that was Deontay Wilder, his
Yeah,
heavyweight. But he's 6'3". That's
he's
the
six
thing.
three.
Like you 6'3", and well, wait a minute. There was one point he was up to 269 pounds. Wow. Man, I think I went to one of his fights though, back in 2018 over in
Yeah.
Bowie, Maryland. It was had to be Bowie because it wasn't in no Rose Quark Raceway joint in Fort Washington. That wasn't. I ain't never been in no fight over there. You back in a horse thing or whatnot. But yeah, that's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah.
August 6th is the scheduled date for this particular event or bout. So, yeah, we're gonna have to keep our eyes out for any more news on that.
Oh, I might have to go to this one.
Yo, so
I could take MSG. I might have to go out one.
Paul, what's going on, man?
It's at MSG. I might have to go to this one.
Oh, yeah, if it's at MSG, then yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, it is at MSG. I might have to go. Okay. Now what's
Damn.
going on with the boxing academic? Where's he at?
I think the boxing academic has been, I guess, in and out of going
Is that,
between Atlanta and what is spot in Alabama. But yeah, he still hasn't visited the statue yet.
I thought he was in detention. Uh, oh my gosh. So what else been going on in boxing, man? Did you happen to catch Floyd Mayweather defending Canelo Alvarez against Ryan Garcia?
Nope.
So you know how Ryan Garcia and Canelo's been having their back and forth.
Right.
So Floyd said, "You see, Ryan Garcia. First he's praising Canelo, want to learn from Canelo in Canelo's training camp. Now it's all hate. Accomplish what Canelo accomplished, then speak bad about him."
Wow. Wow.
What is going on?
I don't know. Let me see something, man. I don't know. It's kind of like your sound is muffled or something. I don't know if you can hear.
Oh, what about now?
Nah, it's still like it's coming through like a muzzle speaker. Like, what are you
Oh,
gonna do?
that's probably just my headset.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. You know. But I'm still able to decipher what you're saying.
Hey, I'm
Uh,
broke, baby. Can't afford no AirPods, man. My headset only cost me $9.99. You get what you pay for.
hey, I got them headphones. I got them headphones too for the iPhone. Hey, what's for mine, man? It looked like it'd be working well for me. So shoot, why would I use AirPods? You know.
I think because
And
I be
besides, like them things keep falling out, be falling out your ears, man. Like man, either
exactly.
you bake them or lose them.
That shit is a goddamn scam.
Yeah, yeah, man. But yeah, I was talking about the whole thing with Kinehan and like how things are starting to really get hectic when it comes to those who could be or are tied with MTK Global and whatever they use for him as far as like the advising type of thing, which is kind of interesting because people, and I was kind of like saying this, you don't really see that much coverage on it from boxing media in a sense, whether it's on print or on social media or whatever. But it did seem like for a little while that a number of these media members were really trying to get something on a certain person by the name of Al Heyman.
Yeah, but here's my thing. The reason why you're not seeing a lot of these media report on Daniel Kinahan, and I heard Jake Donovan say this, is because a lot of them was getting paid by MTK.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're
Mm-hmm.
accepting money, how you then gonna report all his misdeeds?
Mm-hmm. That money train was gonna would be closing on them, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, so
And
already closed on him. Look what happened with IFL TV, Michelle Joy Phelps. Like a lot of
yep.
these, now they're back to selling content again because they lost their MTK sponsorship. No more of
Mm-hmm.
that drug money.
So you had who was the guy? What's his name? There was a former bouncer or something.
Big Baby Miller.
Uh, huh?
Big Baby Miller.
No, 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 man, no. The dude that was part of, I think he was MTK or IFL TV or something like that.
Oh, Coogan.
Yeah, Coogan Cassius. Yeah, him. You had him. You had Michelle Joy Phelps. It's almost like that. Remember the video thing where they had Coogan, they had Michelle Joy Phelps, they had Radio Brahim, and they had Marcos.
Yeah.
Oh man! And now like half of them pretty much are kind of like it looks like they're gonna be out of business. They're gonna be closing up shop. You know?
Hey, it be like that sometimes. I
Yeah.
guess when you don't get paid for favorable coverage anymore, it is what it is.
Yep.
But honestly, I don't care about these guys. I just want to know which fighters are affected, and how
Fighters.
much will it affect Pro Bellum?
Uh
Because Pro
huh.
Bellum claimed they had no ties to Kinehan, but yet Sonny Edwards sounds like he's banned from the UK.
Shit. Shit.
He was on these, not UK, from the US, and he was on these Pro Bellum cards.
Hmm. Now you had that, and you have the fighters, and you also had trainers too. That one way or another, were affiliated with MTK Global or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, I'm hoping that one of those trainers wasn't still affiliated with MTK by the time this thing hit. But that might I might have to save that on the clip for later. But when it comes to the fighters, a lot of us know some of the higher profile names. You have the Josh Taylors, you have the Carl Framptons. You in a sense, one way or another, hate to say it, but you also had Jamel Herring, and of course, one at the top, Mr. Tyson Luke Fury. But before I get into that a little bit more, want to add in another guest. That's right, it's MVO's favorite guy, the boxing academic.
Woo! Mike.
Hey, Matt. Hey, get off my nuts, man.
Wow, you see this shit? You see? When I try to be nice, this is how he hits back at me.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Matt. Get from out in front of that fan, man. I can't even hear you, dog.
It's hot, man. God damn.
Nah, I'm messing with you. How y'all doing?
Oh man, I'm good, man.
There
Good,
we
all
go, man.
good. We trying to break down this whole thing with Kinehan, man. Looks like he's trying to get rid of some dirty money, and had a plan to get rid of that dirty money to pay off some fighters. And so that's the case. Then all them fighters that got that money, they're gonna have to turn in all them sheets and them checks and them deposits and where them deposits came from. Because if anything came from Kinehan, guess what? Y'all gonna have to pay the piper, buddy.
What made it dirty?
Well, Kinehan's affiliations with
Fucking drug dealer.
crime, yo.
Fucking drug lord.
Yeah, drug lord, bro.
Wow.
So, like when we come to like for example, like it could be something really big with someone like a Tyson Fury. Like, when you had the fight with Fury versus Dylan White, and the story going into the fight was the purse bid and Queensberry Promotions winning a purse bid for like what $41 million or something like that. And we're like, Queensberry Promotions won a bid for $41 million. I'm sorry, but I said, yo, they got $41 million like that. So I'm trying to figure out, hey man, listen, that's why you don't really hear Tyson Fury really kind of like mention Daniel Kinahan that much anymore. And this was kind of like key in the conference call for Fury versus White. That's when all this stuff started to surface. And when it did, and they ran through the line of questions from the media, not one solitary person that was able to ask a question to Tyson Fury said anything in reference to MTK Global or anything in reference to Daniel Kinahan. That says something, you know. So I'm like, man, it's gonna be wild. But also, there could be another certain fighter that may or may not have had some affiliations with Kinehan and MTK Global before all of this stuff came down. And MVO, I think you have an idea of who that person is.
Yep.
And if that is the case, and I've kind of like had inklings of this before all of this stuff came down, but this might be one of the major reasons why we don't have an announcement for what would be the biggest fight in boxing this year. Because I think that they're trying to make sure that they'll be 100% clean dealing with this fighter before they could go forward and make that fight happen.
Yes, Al Heyman will not have anything that he's associated with Daniel Kinahan.
That is absolutely right. and my and I I like to see what's going on with that particular fighter. I did mention Tyson Fury. You had something in reference to Mr. Josh Taylor, who was up to a certain point the undisputed super lightweight champion, but he's not undisputed anymore.
Not
He
anymore.
he has given up belt at the belt at the belt at the belt, and it looks like he only has what, one belt.
I think he still has the IBF
Yeah, just the
and
IBF left, maybe,
the WBO.
and maybe the
He ain't never let it go.
WBO.
WBO. He ain't never let it go. Come on, that's Bob's belt.
Yeah, that's Bob's belt. As long as he's still affiliated in some type of sense with Top Rank, he's still gonna hold on to that WBO belt. But yeah, it's the yeah, he's giving up the WBC belt, so you're gonna have those Cepeda and Ramirez fight for those things. But yeah, like a lot of these guys just ain't. Ooh, it's gonna be a real mess for the rest of the year until this whole Rico case gets settled out.
I
So
don't think it's gonna be settled off for years to come.
yeah, I mean it took a good little time for them to even get to the point to press those charges. So like, I mean, I kind of heard from someone that the amount of names that could be tied or affiliated with in this is really really large, like over 1,000 people. So that, if you got it like that, then man, yeah, it's gonna take a whole lot of time for them to get to situate all of that. So that was that, man, on that.
Yes.
um Yo, I mean, since y'all back on here, man, I know that Boxing Academic, wanted to talk about Slugfish for a little bit, even though
I mean, I saw the fight. It wasn't that long. He got hit pretty often, and he got hit with some pretty good shots. I would say that the man has a pretty good chin, but the same way we don't see Provatnikov no more, and he probably still pissing blood. I feel I feel pre pity for Joe Joyce because
mm,
it don't typically end well for people like him. He'll be enormous while he lasts, but that begs the question on fights with Joshua. People like that. Obviously, Tyson Fury would beat him. You know, I'm not even trying to be funny. The only wild card with Deontay Wilder is Wilder's endurance, which has been very questionable in his last few fights. But if he hits slug fist like early and often with that right hand, I mean, I don't see him lasting to it. And I would want to think the same thing with Joshua, that if Joshua hit him early and often, hooks and all his other stuff, uppercuts and everything, that he should just let the everything in the kitchen sink go.
Hmm.
I would hope that their power and stuff would not let Joe Joyce get on the other end of 6 rounds, because if he do, it's gonna be their ass.
mm. Like and the thing with Joe Joyce is that he's coming up, at a late age, and at a point where, well, I don't really think that the division had been very deep, regardless, but you only have like 4 or 5 guys that just worth mentioning, by a lot of people, when it comes to the heavyweight division. Like outside of, like I said, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, and you have Usyk, and what else is out there, as far as like saying that they are like seriously a top contender. there in the heavyweight division. It could be basically a mixed bag after the top four.
Usyk
So
definitely beats him though.
Usyk,
Definitely beats him. He just outpoints him and beats him for 12 rounds, the same way he did in that World Series thing.
yeah, World Series of boxing, yeah. Because he's Joyce is just too slow on his feet. You know,
Yeah, but
uh,
Joyce is relentless and powerful.
but he's slow.
He is.
But if he take a point from Dale Boy and all them other guys who the 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 blueprint is out on Usyk, which is you have to pressure him. You have to make him uncomfortable. You have to make it to where he don't be able to use his feet and fight from the mid range and the outside range. You got to make him like uncomfortable and crossing his feet and stuff and
Not like
just kind of like what?
now continue. It looked like it got cut when you said mid range.
Yeah. Oh dang. So I'm saying make him fight mid range. You can't let him fight mid range and far range, and you have to make him, like think a bunch and not and cross his feet and just be all discombobulated when he trying to do stuff and he just not able to do stuff. And the same way that Dale Boy and just all those guys who made the fight very uncomfortable for him. And so, do I think Joe Joyce can do that? Uh, I just feel like what's the name gonna throw one punch and move, maybe two punches at times, and he just gonna move around in a circle, and Joyce gonna be following him, and he gonna throw a hook. And I heard you say that he was like George Foreman. That's George Foreman wasn't that slow now.
Yeah, it probably wasn't that slow, but I mean, like he was very, very set in his shots. He was like very flat footed when he threw.
He was stiff, but George Foreman fought five people very much like a sparring match. And I think they were real boxers, right?
I think that was the story on that one. That he fought like five dudes around like one time or something.
I saw that.
And I think he would like remember. I think he was training at one point. When he came off the Olympics, that he was training with Sonny Liston, and Sonny Liston was like one of the most feared fighters out there. Up until Ali beat him, so he kind of like came after that mold. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, Joe Joyce, I think he is outside of the top five you mentioned. It's probably right there as the next one. And the thing is, I think he probably got the best chance to beat somebody like Joshua out of all of them. And the reason why I say that is just because I question Joshua's mental fortitude out of all those guys. I even think Usyk would probably bite down a little bit harder. Like, what's his name? You could just see the privilege oozing from him.
Wait, from
And
who?
from Joshua.
Yeah, well, but here's the question on that. Like, where was that when he fought Vladimir Klitschko? Because remember, Klitschko knocked him down. And this is like when Joshua blew his load where he was kind of like hit at his heaviest in his career. So he kind of like had that start against Klitschko and scored that knockdown. But when he wasn't able to finish him, he was pretty much gassed out. And so when he got hit with that what was that right hand by Klitschko, he pretty much like took that and then went down to the canvas, and it took like a good amount of rounds for Joshua to get his, like you say, his win back. But up until that point, Klitschko had the opportunity to finish him, and he didn't. So
How old was Klitschko? 40 what?
how old was Klitschko? What, 41? But but this is the same Klitschko that was what, waiting for a rematch against Tyson Fury.
41 years old.
Okay,
Why couldn't he finish him? Because he's an old man.
okay. But George Foreman was able to finish Michael Moore at 45 years old. God damn.
Yeah. The thing is, even with the stoppage, I got to watch it again, but I feel like the ref could have let him go into the end of the round or something. I think it was at the end of the round to where I was like, ref, you could have gave him another chance. Yeah, he kept falling off the hits, but then the thing was, he obviously had better endurance than Joshua, and that was his best thing. Joshua was faster. He was landing the shots better because of his speed over the slow moving Klitschko. He just was slower with his hands, and but his endurance was by far better, which means you give him a chance. And in one or two rounds, when Joshua net low blow again, but they wouldn't have let that happen. They wouldn't have let it get one or two more rounds because they was like, he ain't gonna have another win. He ain't gonna have a third win.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
I think Joshua the weakest out of the top five in terms of.
I don't see that. I'll disagree with you on that one. I don't see that. You don't get to where he's at. Like I said, and have those level of high level fights that he has, and kind of like be the weakest out of those guys. Like I
So,
just don't see it.
so let's go down the list. No one beats Tyson Fury. Can we consensuously agree to that?
I think MVO wouldn't agree to that because MVO thinks that Jack Reese pretty much
Yep.
cheated Wilder out of a KO victory.
Yes, but
But number two, I still have it to where Joshua can beat Fury. I think Joshua is, from a matchup perspective, really would give Fury issues. I don't think Usyk does. I think Joshua does. You know.
okay.
So you have Fury, you have Joshua, you have Wilder, you have Usyk. You know, and so outside of that, like who in that heavyweight division would really like kind of like match up with Joe Joyce?
Um, let's see him go up against that Philip Hergovich guy.
Philip Hergovich.
You know
Uh,
who we need to fight? Who ain't fighting? Big Baby.
Big
The
Baby
one who,
Miller.
the one
Who
who,
I said? You know who I said before y'all got on here?
who.
Dylan White.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
I mean, Dylan White will land a bunch of punches. So Dylan, what's his name? Don't throw a hook. So Dylan White might actually do well in that fight because Dylan gonna be getting his rocks off early and often.
Yeah, but you make it seem like this guy's not gonna be getting his shit off.
But the thing is, there's some point where Joe Joyce's chin will start to fail him, and that leash is getting smaller and smaller as he cranks it up.
It shouldn't though, because I think he's shown that he's at the top of the sport.
Excuse me, his 9 lives, his ability to absorb punishment, his punch resistance is reducing as he gets hit with every shot.
And it
The
would be
same
like
the same way with Tim Bradley and what's his name?
the Provodnikov, huh?
Yeah, Provodnikov. It was it just was a switch where he was getting hit and he just couldn't take that shit. Like what's that dude name who boxed him who normally fight people? Matisse.
What it be Matisse, Lucas Matisse?
Yeah, Matisse. Did Adrian Broner fight him?
Who, Provodnikov?
Yeah, probably not.
Nah, no.
Somebody fought him that was Latino.
That fought Provodnikov or fought Tim Bradley?
Provodnikov. You know what? It was
Melina?
Molina, Carlos Molina. Didn't he win?
Yeah, Melina. That was Provodnikov's last fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had the fights against Algeria that he lost, that he beat Jose Luis Castillo, lost to Batiste, and lost to Molina. You know, uh, but also had like a win over Jesus Rodriguez. But like the thing with Joe Joyce is like we gotta see like how he reacts to a flush like flush power punch. And like you're saying there, boxing academic, someone like a Wilder, or Joshua that could, really hit him with a big shot. Like, how would Joe Joyce react to that? But for me, I mean, it looks like he's kind of like waiting in the wings to see what happens with that rematch. May end up fighting Joseph Parker for that mandatory spot. Of course, Joseph Parker isn't much of a favorite for MVO because he says that Joseph Parker ain't no killer of sorts. And when it comes to being in the ring, so maybe Joe Joyce would be favored significantly in that particular fight. So you gotta see what else happens with that. Um, Also, before you jumped on there, boxing academic, looks like Jake Paul will be having this fight scheduled for August 6th. That could be there at Madison Square Garden against Hasim Rahman Jr., man. So if that's the case, man, that could be a pretty good little scrap, yo.
Didn't he get knocked out or something
Yes,
recently?
he did get knocked out by James Morrison. Yes, he did. That was his last fight. He did get knocked out.
Do you think that is a part of why he's getting picked?
That probably is partially why he's getting picked. If you looked at Hasim Rahman Jr.'s resume up to the point where he fought Morrison, it wasn't really against that many, uh, fighters that had some impressive records. So, they were kind of like building him up a little bit slow, trying to build up his record. And then eventually, over some time, then maybe he'll have a fight against someone like Morrison, but they just jump right into it. And you saw what happened, so kind
Is
of
he good?
see how that turns out, you know.
Is he good?
Uh, I don't know, man. Like he kind of did get kind of swept by Morrison before that knockout. So who knows? So there's that. I know that they had like a press conference of sorts and a conference call for that uh, little fight that's going on with Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. That's probably the only fight that MVO will pretty much care about when it comes to women's boxing. Or maybe the co-feature bout with Michaela Murray and Alicia Baumgartner. Maybe he might be interested in that. I need to know the percentage or what is the percentage of interest that MVO is interested in a fight between Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgartner. That's what I need to know. I don't know. Maybe maybe he's caught in between something he can't even join in for that. But that fight card is scheduled for September 10th. Think about it is like that Shield said that it had to be on September 10th because it was rescheduled a couple of times. It was supposed to happen sometime this month, or like around Actually, I think it was supposed to happen this coming weekend, this Saturday. Then it got rescheduled. Then they tried to see about getting another date in July, and it couldn't happen then. And for some reason, August was completely out of the table, and now you have it at September 10th. And uh, Clarissa Shields did have that contract, with Boxer in order to have this fight for, the undisputed titles. But she also has a contract with PFL, the mixed martial arts organization, and she has a fight scheduled for PFL as well. And so she said in the conference call, it was like either they were going to have this fight going on as on September 10th, or it was not going to happen at all, because she's been waiting to try to have this fight take place. She had what was it? She had like one fight in the interim, um, earlier this year, and there was something where Savannah Marshall, had a fight, and even with that particular bout, that fight had been pushed back a couple of weeks, or like a month or so, when Savannah Marshall had her fight against Femke Hermans. I think that particular fight was supposed to be in March, and they didn't necessarily have it in March. It had to be pushed back to April. So it's like, well, like what, like Seals was like, what's going on? Why isn't she coming up and kind of saying that she's gonna go forward with the fight? And now they finally were able to come to terms. September 10th is going to happen, and Clarissa Shields is like, she doesn't feel like Savannah Marshall is like fully into it. Almost seems like she's with one foot out the door, almost like talking about retirement or something like that. Well, she's pretty much about to start to go into camp and get prepared for this bout that's going to be in the O2 Arena. So that is one thing to look forward to there, and on September 10th. Like I said, it will be on Sky Sports and on ESPN Plus. You will have Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner for unified titles at super featherweight. There'll probably be more fights that are added to this particular card later on. Like I said, it's July, so you got like a couple of months before this actual fight takes place. So you do have that. But that, you basically is mostly what I got for this particular episode of Boxing Source Radio Show. That's if NVO is able to jump back in and add anything more. We'll pretty much have a close to this episode. We'll try to get back at it at a regular scheduled time. We'll see for Sunday, scheduled for Sunday, to see if we can get right back at it. But looks like NVO has been kind of like working with that sound system or his earphones. So we'll be able to join in here for the end of this. But thank everyone for listening in live. And it will be, like I said, it's available through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you use for listening to podcasts. And like I say at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit, and I can hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening.